Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode. I'm really excited about today's topic that I'm going to share with you, and I'll preface it by saying it's going to be perfectly imperfect. This is a topic that I have been speaking more and more of on my channel, and it's all about how we can begin to heal our lives through embodying our own sacred, divine, feminine energy. As I'm deepening my own experience of living more embodied and creating balance and union between my masculine and my feminine energies, I'm noticing that I also want to speak more about that part of my journey and the amazing healing that it brings. So you can definitely expect that I'm going to be doing more videos on this topic. So often we don't realize that some of the challenges that we experience and some of the things that come across our path are all part of the journey of dismantling who we no longer are when we step onto this path of the divine feminine and really getting connected to our own truth. So my intention then is to share with you some of these things so that you can see that you are not alone, you're not crazy, there's nothing wrong, and there's nothing that needs to be fixed, which is something that I'm so grateful for, because for a big part of my life, there were many things about myself that I believe needed to be fixed before I would be lovable or acceptable or good enough or not too much anymore. And I feel that I have really come beyond that. It still shows up for me sometimes, but really on this whole journey of healing the relationship with myself and really getting in touch with my own true, authentic beingness, I've really come to see more and more that who I am is enough. And not only am I seeing that, I'm also embodying that. It's so easy for us because of the amount of information that we have available and a lot of the mainstream teachings around personal development, even spirituality, personal growth, focuses on positive thought and high vibration and light and love and all of those sweet, beautiful things. And often what could happen is when you're not in the experience of that, when you don't have the state of being in love and lightness, when you're feeling down, when you're in your darkness, then it's so easy for us to feel shame for that, to make that part of us wrong. And the first theme that is so prevalent in the path of the sacred feminine is the theme of death and rebirth. As women, when you menstruate, we go through that cycle ourselves every month where we shed which no longer needs to be a part of us, and we start building the new. And this theme doesn't only happen to us physically, but it also plays out in our lives on a much bigger scale. And so we are called as part of this work, this inner work, to healing that authentic connection with ourselves and really showing up as the best and the most truest version of ourselves so that we can go on to heal the world through our interactions. We are asked to shed and let go of the things that don't serve us anymore. And this is a very painful and vulnerable process, and it can be really dark and very, very uncomfortable. And if you go around with the idea that it is wrong or incorrect or not good for your personal or spiritual growth to be down in the dumps or to be struggling, you can easily think, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing to attract these things into my life? So what I want to offer you is that this is part of the natural cycle of being. This is the feminine. You cannot always be in light and in summer and in joy and jubilation. The feminine is cyclical. There is going to be a time where we descend into our own darkness, where we get rid of those things that don't serve us. And this is, as I said, this is when it's necessary for us to become really honest with ourselves about what is no longer working in our relationships, in our behaviors, in our own inner world, in the beliefs that we hold around things, in the habitual patterns in the way that we maybe abandon ourselves or reject parts of ourselves. She calls on us to really, with compassion, but with dead honesty, explore those things. And this is a theme that continues to show up in my life, is around the theme of vulnerability. I've spoken about this before as well, where it's really been such a big journey for me to allow myself to be seen. And I still don't get it right. Sometimes I get it right, and sometimes I still mess it up and I hide those parts of myself. But more and more, this is what I'm finding as I'm walking this path, more and more I'm letting myself be seen. I'm opening my heart to allow myself to be softer, to allow myself to be open and receptive, and to let things in instead of walking with a shield, which is really how I see my not being vulnerable playing out, is where I'm shielding and protecting myself. And it is no longer serving me, and that's also not the woman who I want to be. Cultivating the relationship with yourself and really getting in touch with your deep and honest truth and releasing those things that no longer serve you, it is a process. And you'll come out of it, you'll go into your summer, and then you'll descend again into your darkness. So that's the first theme that I see is so important for us to understand and embrace when we embody this work of aligning with our divine feminine nature. The second theme, which is both liberating, joyous, and also asks of us to tap into our darkness, is that we reclaim all the parts of ourselves. Here I really focus on two specific aspects. And the first one is our wild woman, which is one of the archetypes that I work with. And then the other one is the inner child, which is another archetype that I work with. These are aspects of us. These are parts of ourselves that we have maybe lost touch with, certainly in our world, through our conditioning, through the patriarchal system. And I'm not bashing men here. I'm just naming the truth that we are living in a society where the masculine is revered and honored above the feminine. Most of the cultures in the world operate on this system. For us as women, it's such a big and important role that we have to play, is to reclaim our true nature, to reclaim all parts of ourselves. But we have become so skilled and extremely well developed in using our masculine energy, and our feminine energy has kind of been forgotten and neglected. And in this forgotten and neglected part, this is where I see those parts of ourselves that we reject, that needs to be reclaimed when we begin to become more skilled in embodying our feminine and embracing the whole spectrum of what it means to walk this sacred path. This is when we begin to reclaim those parts of ourselves. So if I can just speak to those two briefly, just to put them into perspective for you, I really see that our wild woman is that untamed, wild, and authentic parts of ourselves. She speaks her truth. She's not afraid to be seen. She loves wildly and fiercely, but she's also deeply nurturing and caring. We have become so tamed. This patriarchal world that we live in really has tamed us to dim our light and to not show up as the fullest and most juiciest and most radiant expression of ourselves. We are filled with self-doubt about our own capabilities. We try to be manly in our actions, meaning that we don't adhere to our own cyclical nature. We ignore the calls of our body. The feminine is in the body. We experience the truth of our feelings, which is the currency of the feminine. We experience that in our bodies. And becoming disembodied, which is the sickness that I see we are all battling with, is we are very disembodied from our own truths. through that disembodiment, when we begin to analyze and judge and see ourselves only on the level of the mind, we reject our wild parts. We reject our innocent parts. We reject those parts that cry out for help, our wounded inner child. When we begin to connect deeper into our feminine truth, it has the direct result of us healing the wounds of our inner child. When we soften inwards towards ourselves, when we begin to love on ourselves all of those parts that we have thought at some point is not good enough, or that we need to get rid of in order to be more acceptable, or in order to be liked, or in order to get on better in the world, when we become softer towards those parts of us, it cracks the cement that holds it in place, and we heal. And so while you can have specific practices that focuses on healing the inner child, like journaling or embodiment practices or a meditation or working with a therapist, what I have found is that simply being on this path of becoming skilled in your feminine will contribute to your inner child feeling loved and witnessed and safe. The third theme that I see play out is one that requires a little bit of a mindset shift. Now, again, in this masculinized world, we tend to think in binary terms. We tend to think black and white. Something is either or. When we do inner work sometimes, or when we are on the path of personal growth, we like to see empirical evidence. We want to see results. We want to know that something is true. When we begin to tap into our intuition, we doubt ourselves. We go, but what if maybe that's just my imagination? So we really have been so conditioned to think in these binary terms. And the world of the feminine is non-binary. There is no either or. Everything is on a scale. So if we take our emotions, for example, the intensity of how we experience those emotions, that's always going to be on a scale. The intensity of how much pleasure we experience, that's always going to be on a scale. And something which was so revolutionary for me, or revelationary for me, was when I came to understand that when we suppress and avoid being with these uncomfortable and undesirable aspects of ourselves, it has the result of our entire feeling capacity shrinking. And so we don't only stop feeling the undesirable and uncomfortable, but we also stop feeling the more joyous and pleasurable ends of our feeling, sensation, and experiencing spectrum. Now, if we go back to the first point, which is that we go through these cycles of death and rebirth, what it could then feel like is it may feel like you are in death all of the time, that you are always here in the darkness. And for some of us, this might be how the feminine calls to us. I know this is what happened to me. Is for about 2.5, probably 3 years, I was in an extremely dark place. It was a very extended dark night of my soul. And this is where I first landed on my connection with the divine feminine. Once the divine feminine invites you in, once she calls to you, once your soul wakes up and what I call your wild woman wakes up, there is no turning back. She is not going to let it go. But it hasn't been a linear growth. For me, my experience was that I had an opening and a calling in of the divine feminine, and she called me to her. And I rejected that for a very long time. I was afraid to go there, which is part of this theme. We like to know the outcome. We want to know that when we go on a certain path, this is what is going to happen. And the path of the feminine is not like that. It's very nebulous. I feel even the way that I'm trying to explain and express myself in this video might be a little bit confusing as I'm just following the threads as they come up. But this is the way of the feminine. It's about trusting and opening up. So moving away from this binary yes, no, black, white thinking asks of us to trust. It asks of us to follow the breadcrumbs. And these breadcrumbs, this is part of how we begin to personalize our relationship with the feminine, is really opening ourselves to seeing these breadcrumbs, those intuitive hunches, beginning to understand, how does it feel in my body when it's a full-bodied yes and an opening towards something, or a full-bodied no, as in I am not available for that. And so when we begin to follow these breadcrumbs, when we begin to follow these intuitive nudges and impulses and signs and signals and things that get given to us, we begin to follow that. It does ask of us to have trust, because inevitably your need to control and your need to know the answer and your need to have a certain outcome and a clear, visible target, that is always going to try and override this newly developed skill of trusting your inner wisdom and trusting the, as I said, often nebulous and unclear way of the feminine. And so the last thing that I want to offer you are 3 practices that might be very supportive if you want to continue to cultivate this relationship, whether you're new on the path of the feminine or whether you've been walking this path for a while already. I find that these are really helpful and useful practices. And the first practice is to connect into your body. The way that we connect with our feminine currency of feeling is through the body. So we really want to bring our energy down into the body. And when you have the practice of checking in with your feelings, checking in with how you are doing, how your heart is doing, and how the thoughts that you are thinking are making themselves known as feelings and sensations in your inner world, this really lays the foundation for us to trust our intuitive impulses more. This is how you begin to cultivate that relationship with yourself and with your authentic truth. The second practice is to reflect on where have you domesticated yourself. And the purpose of this question is really to begin to see where you can let your wild woman in, where you can open the doors of your heart to let her enter into your experience. So where are you taming yourself? And again, I see this play out on 2 levels. We get tamed by our family systems, we get tamed by our culture, we get tamed by society, and that's an external taming that happens, but we also tame ourselves internally. This comes from our belief systems. Yes, they have been put on us externally, but many of these belief systems, through our own experiences and the filters that we have, we interpret things in a certain way, and so we tame ourselves. We continue to believe the narratives about ourselves, which may not be true anymore. You may not be that person that you were 10 or 15 years ago. You don't see life in the same way, but we never stop to question, is this still true for me? So this death rebirth cycle, getting rid of those parts of you, getting rid is not the right term, but releasing those parts that aren't you anymore, that's not truly reflective of where you are on your journey. The question, where have I domesticated myself, or where have I become domesticated, will bring some illumination and insights if you go around seeing where this is playing out in your life. And then the final practice that I have for you is, where are your actions not aligned with your values? We show up, we speak in ways, we do things that aren't really aligned with what we value, and that aren't aligned with the future vision of ourselves, of the woman that we want to evolve into, of the woman that we are becoming. So it's a very powerful and sobering question to really sit with and see, where are my actions not aligned with my values? And once you land on these, when you see this, it's so important, and I say this all the time, it's so important for us not to judge that and to make that wrong, but to really see it as a place where some more healing can happen. And when you notice that you are doing certain things or saying certain things or showing up in certain ways that aren't aligned, in this place you now have the power to choose. This is why awareness is such a very valuable tool for all of us to develop self-awareness, because in that space of self-awareness there's a gap. There's always a gap between seeing or becoming aware or having that insight and taking action. And in that gap, in that holy space, you can choose how you are going to move forward, how you are going to act. You can choose who you are going to be from this point. So I really want to encourage you to try these practices out for yourself and see, play around with them, see how you can make them work for you. And if you have any practices that you want to share with us and share with our community here, then I'd love for you to drop them in the comments so that we can all get some of that medicine. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I really hope that it landed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.